Alright guys, I know I jumped the gun a couple days ago on the release date of South of Midnight, but the game is officially out in full today, both on Steam and on Game Pass. And of course, we don't know how many people are going to be playing this on Game Pass due to the fact that they do not release those numbers. But we do have Steam numbers, and while that doesn't include the total number of players, it paints a pretty important picture of this game, and we'll get to that a little bit later in the video. But we are seeing a lot of this toxic positivity from the games media, from sites like Kotaku saying South of Midnight, the Kotaku review, the new action platformer on Xbox Game Pass is fantastic despite repetitive combat. Now here's the thing. This talk of repetitive combat, how this game would have been good in 2015, how the game's combat is mid, how it gets boring, how the enemy variety kind of sucks. This is all we're hearing. Again, everyone's trying to praise this game for its representation and its diversity and its portrayal of the Black Southern experience, but it forgot to be a video game, which is why we also see articles like this from Aftermath talking about the difficulty options of this game, because apparently this game, if you get tired of the repetitive slog of enemies that you have to fight, and again, I was watching some of the combat in this game, it's not difficult, it's not hard. I would have to turn the difficulty way up just to have an actual, competitive gameplay experience. You can even put a mode in this game where you don't have to fight any of the bosses. You can push a button, kill all the enemies, and move on with your day. Essentially, it is a story-only mode, a journalist mode, if you will, for people who would rather watch a cinematic experience than play an actual video game. This is absolutely pathetic behavior, in my opinion. Just watch a movie if you want to watch a movie. But again, this is the audience that they are trying to target this game to. That being said, before we move on in this video, go check out MetaPCs. They just revamped their website. The tariffs have not taken effect yet, so you can still get your computer locked in at the price that they have them listed for on the website, but that's not guaranteed for long, so go check them out. Link down below in the description, as well as my code. Use those, save some money, and helps the channel out greatly. So, we are now seeing fellow slop studios like Ninja Theory congratulating Compulsion Games on the launch of South of Midnight. Now, again, another studio that launched their game on Game Pass and had disastrous effects. If you didn't play Hellblade 2, you were probably better off than I was, because I played this game and it was a miserable, boring slog, which is why there are currently 20 people playing this game on Steam. It peaked at less than 4,000 players not even a full year ago, and nobody is playing this game anymore. Now, yes, it is a single-player game. Sure, it is a story-driven game. Sure. But there are more people currently playing Hellblade 1 than 2. That is because 2 was absolutely dreadful. It was miserable to play, the story sucked, the gameplay was even worse, and honestly, it just wasn't as good as the first game. Of course, you also see fellow slop studio Obsidian saying, "Decipher the spiritual world with us." Weaver and Animancer, huge congratulations to our friends at Compulsion Games on the launch of South of Midnight. Again, fellow slop studio that put out Avowed congratulating Compulsion on having their game get destroyed on Game Pass and by Sweet Baby Inc., which we'll also talk about in a minute. And of course, this coming from Avowed, a game which is basically dead in the water at this point, a few months after launch. A game that did not live up to all the hype. But it doesn't stop there. The actual lead producer at Compulsion Games saying, "South of Midnight is launching today and I am so proud. Congratulations, Compulsions. I feel truly lucky to have been happy every day coming into work with this wonderful team to craft this meaningful adventure. Hope you will enjoy our game world. Go get them, Hazel." But of course, they're not talking to straight white men, because remember, the community manager of this game hates straight white male gamers. So clearly you're not the target audience, even though this woman herself is white, so I'm not quite sure why they had a white lead producer on a game featuring a black protagonist. That seems a little ass backwards to me, doesn't it? But the funnier thing too is Jen here, the lead producer at Compulsion, actually has a very interesting work history. She has not only worked at Compulsion Games, but Behavior Interactive, a bunch of woke lunatics work there on Dead by Daylight, as well as at Ubisoft, and she was also the co-founder of Misclicks back in 2013. Misclicks being a Dungeons and Dragons table read group that was basically focused on diversity and inclusion of women and non-binary, transgender people in gaming, essentially, back in the original Gamergate 1 days. They started a YouTube channel, got it to about 11,000 subscribers, and then eventually just disbanded because they couldn't get any views, nobody cared, nobody was interested in their crap that they were peddling anymore. So that takes us now to the numbers of South of Midnight that are currently playing this game. The game managed to claw its way up to about 1.4 thousand players. That's it. That's the peak for this game today. Now, this game came out in advanced access a few days ago. It is unlikely, I would say at this point, to hit 2,000 or 3,000 this weekend. It's possible, but it's unlikely due to the fact that this game has now been in some form or fashion available for 5 or 6 days and couldn't make it to 2,000 players on its launch day. Absolutely miserable behavior. And of course, this article from That Part Place puts it pretty succinctly. Sweet Baby Inc. game South of Midnight flops hard. Another SBI project crashes on launch. Now again, the significance of this is not just the fact that the game is mid, the combat is mid, they created these characters for representation purposes only, but the fact that Sweet Baby Inc. has had a profound effect on every single title that they have played, whether the games are woke or not, whether the games have been bad or not. Every game Sweet Baby Inc. has touched has failed for one reason or another. And this person here that was pointed out by Bandar Hub on Twitter is definitely one of the symptoms of the issue going on in gaming today. This is from Zaire Lanier, one of the writers on South of Midnight. I believe she worked for or with Sweet Baby Inc. to create this story.
More queer characters of color, not just, just a white queer character. I would like to see more people that look like me. I think audiences have a very vocal minority of people who are very much against inclusion of anything that's not, as we said, like a cis straight white man. But our existences aren't political, they just are. And
I have to pause this right here. She claims that it's a small vocal minority of people who don't want non-straight white men included in video games. Again, I might give her a little bit of grace and say, sure, if you're talking about people who are actually bigoted, people who truly hate anybody based on the color of their skin or their gender, sure, I would say that that's a very, very, very small vocal minority. The problem is, she's not talking about the vocal minority that I'm talking about. She's talking about people like me who just don't want a bunch of agendas crammed into our video games. She lumps everybody who pushes back against Sweet Baby Inc. and this DEI agenda in video games as the quote-unquote vocal minority of bigots.
And I think that more and more people are expecting to see that kind of representation and also expecting it to get broader as time goes on, as opposed to just having that same white gay guy archetype, or like Ellie in The Last of Us. We're looking for people who, non-binary, intersex, trans, who aren't just white, they look like me and you. And I think that games are starting to delve into that more, but I think it also needs to be intentional and not an afterthought.
And again, I don't know when this interview is from, but I would argue, based on the current trend of games, the way that they've gone the last 4 or 5 years, that she is 100% wrong in this respect. People are not looking for more representation. We're looking for better gameplay and better stories and less agenda-driven messaging.
It can't, if you're writing, like Tori said, it has to be from the beginning. The team should be from that community, not we're wherever in our process, we should probably bring on a consultant who we may or may not listen to. It should, from the beginning, it should be a priority. And I think audiences are hungry for that kind of thoughtfulness. And I think queer people of color are able to write within their own identity.
This is the best part. These are the so-called anti-racists. Just wait till you hear what she says here about how one race of people can write for another, but not vice versa. Just get a load of this.
White characters of that same identity, but I don't think that white creators can on their own cross that boundary to write a queer person of color, because as people of color, we have to exist within the framework of America's just capitalistic, colonialistic framework. That's whiteness is the standard. And so I understand your culture, but come to a barbecue at my church or at my house or something.
So if you wonder why this game is utter dog shit, if the story looks cringe to you, if it looks like it's some sort of ham-fisted forced agenda, it's because it is. And I've said on record, I don't think having a black character or having gay characters in the game means that it has to have some sort of evil agenda behind it. No, you can have those things occur naturally or authentically, and that's not going to ruin the game. You can even have things that you consider woke in a game, and the game, in spite of those things, can still somehow manage to be good. But games like this, that serve as nothing more than mouthpieces for these agenda-driven ideologues, are never going to succeed anymore because people have woken up to the reality that's like, these people hate you, they hate the general customer base of video games, and they want nothing more than to subvert it. And these people from Sweet Baby Inc. have said their goal is to destroy the video game industry. Their goal is to light it on fire, burn it down, and rebuild it in their image. So this is what we have now with games like South of Midnight, and that's why it's failing. Anyways, guys, I'm going to leave it right there. Let me know what you think about all this, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Alright, and if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you for being here. I do have 2 channels, Minimal Effort Podcast, as well as my gaming channel. I do have a Twitch and Kick for my gaming channel. We do live streams over there occasionally, maybe once a week. And then if you are in the market for a new PC, make sure to check out Meta PCs. Click the link I have down below. Use code TBO at checkout for a special discount. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.